So let's see. Let's just double check. Okay, something's recording. That's a plus. Um, let me just double check something here. Ew, I believe it's still going. So we're just going to continue. Okay, so this video is called Crowder Eats Crow, or Steven Crowder Eats Crow, right? Because let's see what he's going to do here, right? Change my mind. Trump is not a fascist, right? Now, I haven't seen this whole video yet. I did get through a little bit. It's 35 minutes. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to go on it. I'll just keep going until I get tired, and you guys can speed it up or slow it down or whatnot. I sped it up, his video up to 1.25. You might want to speed my video up to 1.25. Hear this. Okay, anyway, here we go.
No, it does not matter. It does not matter. We are not going to Obama to compare Obama to... I don't know.
Okay, time for the latest installment of Change My Mind. Unedited conversations with real people about controversial topics as per usual. Comment the topics you'd most like to see for future installments below. This week we made a special trip to Washington, D.C. and parked outside of the White House itself to deal with one of the most pervasive myths in the left's social nomenclature today.
I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a fascist.
Humanity is facing an emergency. A fascist regime has seized the reins of power in the most powerful, actually the sole superpower in the world.
There's a word for this, Ashley. It's fascism.
I think that Donald Trump himself is a dangerous neo-fascist in the making.
Flirtation with fascism in this country.
Now this government, hand in hand with another fascist, is wrong.
I disagree. Do you? Feel free to comment and substantiate your argument below, but we decided to put all of this to the test. Unfortunately, turns out most people visiting the White House actually really like President Donald Trump.
I like him.
Something to do we love Trump.
So much so, in fact, that it was hard to get a whole lot of people willing to sit and have a civil disagreement at all. Though we did get quite a few, as per the usual drive-by yellings.
No, he's a moron.
He's a fascist. He's a Nazi. He's a fascist. He's a... And so I may try. He's supposed to be a rat.
If you go on YouTube and search, you will find so many things that comes out from his mouth.
Fire the liar.
Yeah.
Fire the liar.
But we finally sat down with a couple of people to have hopefully productive discussion about Donald Trump, fascism, and accusations therein. As always, before you engage in civil disagreement, it's important to define your words.
What's the definition of a fascist?
I'm glad you've asked. Let's agree to start with the definition. You want to read that from me? That's from Merriam-Webster.
Political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation, wow, and often raised above the individual and stands toward the centralized. Reading that, I would say no, because I don't think he exalts the nation at all.
Okay, so she's already made a step backwards, right? She's already saying, hey, in that case, he doesn't fulfill that aspect of the definition. But here we go.
Continue. It's centralized.
Centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader. Well, I do think she's dictatorial.
Okay.
Severe economic and social regimentation. No. Forcible suppression of opposition. Yes.
Okay. Anyway, you just made a few assertions there based on the definition of fascism, but we agree on the definition of fascism. I'm defining it as per the
Where
dictionary.
did that come from, anyway?
Merriam-Webster.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can here. So where would you say he's a fascist, Donald Trump?
I would say that opposition, that,
The suppression of opposition.
right, the suppression of opposition.
Okay, how so?
Well, let's see, we just had the man's security clearance removed, simply because he has vocally disagreed with President Trump.
Which man are we talking about?
The ex-general, or he was a military man? Or, no, actually, I think he'd been the CIA director under Obama.
Okay.
And he's threatening to remove other people's security clearances as well. He also says the press is the enemy of the people. Okay.
Okay, so can we take a couple of those now? Because you
Sure.
should too.
Okay.
So a couple of things. For example, probably the most severe example is he fired Comey. Right, that was a big one.
Okay.
Fired James Comey. So we're talking about the investigation. I know we often go to the Russia probe or who he's granted security clearances to or removed. Let me ask this: is it within his constitutional authority to do that?
Yes.
Okay. So it wouldn't be an example of fascism.
No.
Your problem wasn't with Donald Trump. Your problem was with United States law. Then you talk about he said, I want to make sure I have your quote correct, that the press is the enemy of the people.
Wait. Now look. This guy right here is who they're talking about, right? Now he speaks at length about having his security clearance taken away. And some people, including this guy, I believe, suspect that even though he's used as an advisor, because he's been around the block so long, because he's closer to Trump's age, or might have some sort of historic Americana sense of politics, that suggests something more noble, perhaps, than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is taking away the guy's clearance. Maybe. I mean, I'm speculating on why
Former CIA director
he
under
would do
President
that,
Obama,
right?
who now serves as MSNBC's senior national security and intelligence analyst. Director Brennan, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good morning, Holly.
Let me get your thoughts now on the way that the White House and specifically the president has responded to the death of this long-serving Senator John McCain.
Well, I'm glad that they finally came out and acknowledged the tremendous contributions that Senator McCain has made to this country. And so I think we...
Okay, now before right here, former CIA director under the Obama administration. Now this is a newer story, so it's not it's more right here. Oh, losing his security clearance, right? So this woman is not incorrect, right, in saying in terms of the opposition, the definition in Webster Merriam, which is this one, right? If we go down to what it is they're saying, often capitalized, a political philosophy, movement, or regime such as that of a fascist that exalts a nation and often race above the individual, and that stands for centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of opposition. Okay, so when she brings up that, okay, if he's taken away clearance that might keep him from being impeached, he has to be able to show a correlation to the speculation, right? I believe he should do that. But if there is any correlation relative to the idea of showing Trump doing something illegal, then that is a suppression. Hence, that is not dictatorial, right? And it is forcible opposition. So it already qualifies, right? She's already caveated the discussion. Let's continue.
I think it said oppresses in that definition.
Yes, but that was a quote that you used, right? That Donald Trump said the press is the enemy of...
But yes, he says the press is the enemy of the people.
Okay, do you know where that quote actually comes from?
No, I don't.
Stalin. And Donald Trump didn't say that. He talked about fake news
But
being
is
the
he
enemy
not
of the
saying that right now himself?
No, he's talking about fake news is a quote that he's used, which is a leftist term, I'm sure you know, it was invented by liberals, which he then co-opted,
Is
being an
he
enemy of
not
the people.
saying himself
Yeah.
that right now, currently, whoever said it first,
Yeah.
is he not currently saying that the press is the enemy of the people?
That exact quote is a quote attributed to Stalin.
Has he
So I'm
said it
talking about
himself?
Donald
Am I
Trump.
misinformed? Has he
Yes,
not said
yes,
it
you
himself?
are, but then let's move on to-
I'm misinformed?
Yes,
I've
yes.
not seen his tweets that say the press is the enemy of the people.
No.
Or his television
She's talking about
programs.
fake news, yeah. But let's move on again to, there's rhetoric, I think it's...
Okay, well, let's see. Is there any tweets about Trump saying, let's see, Trump, the press is the enemy of the people? I don't know. It's the best I can do on the fly, guys, to show you how fly I am, guys. Let's see. Even though it's obviously slow. Whatever's going on here. Okay, let's see. Enemy of the people, man echoing Trump's words, charged with threatening newspaper. You're the enemy of the people, man allegedly said is a threat to the Boston Globe. Okay, so it's not that Trump said it, perhaps, but he said, you're the enemy of the people, right? And it happened to be somebody from a news organization, apparently the Boston Globe. So once again, is she incorrect? I believe she's correct, right? Now he's saying, well, now that because it came from Stalin, there's no way Trump could have taken it, out of context or used it within another type of like context, right? And so obviously Stephen is getting eaten up here just on a mere Google search, right? Okay, so here we go.
And there's policy. So you've talked about the press, for example. I think that's important. I think freedom of the press is very important. For example, we both agree if someone sought to nationalize a press, that would be a problem. That would be a step toward fascism, right? Will we both agree on that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we have some common ground there.
Right, okay, so the traditional notion of Nazism, as I understood it, on maybe a primitive definition, was state-controlled industry, right, where the state controls all the means of production, basically, right, as opposed to business owners or industrialists or anybody that's working within the quote-unquote free market, right? So anything that's a threat to the free market that nationalizes certain domains of industry would be considered fascist. So I agree That seems to be okay. Well, he's at least touching base on that, so that's cool.
What has Donald Trump done as far as actionable steps taken towards suppression of the free press?
Well, hasn't he tried to?
Boom. Okay, what hasn't he done? And now he's not even saying opposition, he's saying suppression, which is a type of opposition. If you're feeling suppressed, it's by an opposer. If you view it as such, I suppose. Okay, here we go.
Not allow people into the White House, into the press room. He's trying to dictate who's allowed to come in and not come in. That's a small amount of suppression. It's not a legal huge.
Sure, sure.
Okay, if just that alone is the case, then it's true. He's suppressing them, right? If they got credentials and he's keeping them out, that's a type of suppression. If he's the leader, the head of the executive branch of America, making that kind of movement towards something that's part of the Constitution already, right? And he even tells people to shut up. Watch.
He hasn't passed a law. He hasn't pulled out the police.
Sure.
But just in saying that, and
So back to the rhetoric.
right, the rhetoric.
So not so much policy, it sounds to me, you have a problem with the rhetoric.
That's correct.
Because his policies would actually fly in the face of it.
Because okay, now he's saying, look, he obviously she's got this nailed down, right? But then here's where Steven Crowder, he's fucking notorious for this shit. That's why this is a case. He's not always a douchebag. In this case, he's a fucking douchebag. He's as sloshy as the water in a fucking woman's pushed out vag cleaning, right? And it's nasty because the thing about Steven Crowder here is now he's pivoting, right? He's pivoting between policy and behavior, right? Let's just tag that right there.
He hasn't passed a law. He hasn't pulled out the police.
Sure.
But just in saying that, and
So back to the rhetoric.
right, the rhetoric.
So not so much policy, it sounds to me, you have a problem with the rhetoric.
Now, because he gets her to agree, that is the problems with the rhetoric. Now he's backtoning. This is where he's a douche. Now he's backtoning to point to policy and then do a comparative analysis of policy, because that's really where Crowder wants the argument to be, which isn't a bad area. Like, hey, what is he actually doing within policy, right? It's fine, but he's using her now as merely a rhetorical. He's not believing all of the points that assume her argument is in fact correct. And she's doing a great job.
That's correct.
Because his policies would actually fly in the face of that. Because you were the one who sat down, you believe he's a fascist. So if we talk about policy, I mean, President Obama actually withheld more information, spent $36-odd-something million.
Before we go on, here's this, right, as evidence.
It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace. What took place, it's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with Michael Cohen.
Sir, since you're attacking us, can you give us a question?
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization,
Not
can
you.
you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give us a
is
chance
terrible.
to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir,
Quiet.
Quiet. Mr. President-elect.
Okay, he tells someone to be quiet. He's not going to take
Go
their
ahead.
question.
She's asking a question. Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you stay categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
Go ahead.
can you stay categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not
Go ahead.
appropriate.
I think it was disgraceful.
So anyway, okay, so there's the point of that. There's evidence of their suppression against a news organization that's considered wrongly, I believe, as journalism. I mean, we moved away from authentic journalism before the second Iraq War, between the first and the second Iraq War, where when Bush was elected and we went to war, he made it illegal to videotape war, right? As a notion that it's projecting our movements, right, in the war if you allow recording. But what it also does is it shows the fucking atrocity of war. And then if you show atrocities of war all over the news all the time, you're going to get huge riots like you did in the Vietnam era, right? People don't want to see their own getting slaughtered and see their own slaughtering. It's not a preferential thing. Anyway, so here we go. So, but we're in another day. These are more pithy topics, flaky.
The Freedom of Information Act to withhold information from journalists.
How did we
He
get
used
to
the
Obama?
Hold on, this is why it matters. Because
No,
Donald
it
Trump
does
has not
not
done that.
matter.
Donald Trump has not
It
done
does
that.
not matter. We are not going to Obama to compare
Is
Obama
Obama a
to...
fascist?
I don't know.
Okay, but you said with such authority that Donald Trump is a fascist. If I may just continue along with my point here. Barack Obama used the Espionage Act not only to spy on, but prosecute more leakers, whistleblowers, and journalists than any president in history. The reason I bring this up is because Donald Trump hasn't done that. As a matter of fact, he's been more transparent. He's been
Most presidents don't do what other presidents do, right? And so to make that clarity is fine. Like I'm not disagreeing with what Crowder is saying there. Her point is, look, this president. I mean, if Obama is doing it via policy and Trump is doing it via rhetoric, the rhetoric is still suppressing the press. Or it's belittling one of the freedoms of the press to ask a question, to report on things, right? So now instead of having interviews and investigating things, the report is really about the video of the presidency defaming and defuncting, accusing, and then not responding to a journalist. And that in itself is considered the suppression. Like, hey, you're not allowed. You're credentialed, but you're not allowed. Once again, I think she's making just a fine point. But okay, so back to Crowder, because I'm not trying to say Crowder is totally fucked up on this.
more open to the press than the previous president. I don't think Barack Obama was a fascist, and I don't think Donald Trump is a fascist. You are saying definitively that Donald Trump is a fascist based on rhetoric. I'm showcasing you his
Why would
policy.
he say this then if he's so transparent and so open and so actually wanting the press in? Why
I
would
wouldn't-
he
I'm not
say?
saying he wants the
Why
press in.
does he say that? Why does he say
Because
that?
the press has an inherent liberal media bias and it's dishonest.
Oh, excuse me. Why? How do you prove that? What are the numbers? Where are the studies that this mainstream media is so liberal and progressive and communist and whatever you want to say?
Right. Okay, so, and I love what's going on here because basically, look, she's now saying, hey, look, I generally am using the word Nazi. I already retracted some. I think some of it applies. And here you are, fucking Crowder, eating crow, willy-nilly, saying the press is left, right? And then when she's like, cite it, the same way you brought up the definition, well, I don't know. Where's your flashcard now? Okay, let's see.
Towards the left, that they have this bias.
One thing, if you could do me a favor, I didn't put any words in your mouth. Don't put words in my mouth.
But you changed the argument used, which I thought were talking about Donald Trump, and you switched it over to
No,
Obama.
Do you understand the purpose for that, though? Do you understand the purpose?
No. I want you
You
to
said Donald Trump is a fascist.
No, but why are we talking Obama? Why
Because
are we
Obama actively
talking-
sought to suppress the
why-
press, and Donald Trump doesn't. That's
And
relevant.
how do I know he hasn't?
Now, I disagree with Chatter there because with that last video I showed you, is Donald Trump using rhetoric to shut down the press, right? And I don't know what Obama did do with the press, as he's saying. I guess I could Google that to be fair and balanced, but my finger's sore, so I won't Google that. But the point is I don't know what Obama did relative to the press. So I don't mean the press is still there, the channels are still there. I mean, I don't think it's real journalism. Once again, I don't think modern-day journalism exists anymore. I think it's really systematically been shut down, and we are whitewashed. I'm not disagreeing that modern TV journalism or speech isn't curtailed on a liberal, or what's quote-unquote a liberal bias, but I think that libertarianism is an echo of kind of the least contentious type of American population that we could afford, like an ideality of a population that had little friction and was still held together with like surface tension, right? Like we have surface tension, we don't have waves, right? So we're delivering. Anyway,
How do I know he hasn't? When I hear from his mouth that he does not like the press, and that they're lying, and that everything that they say is fake, with the exception of one news program.
Yeah. A lot of what they say, yes, is fake. It's
And
unsubstantiated.
why does he also then retweet?
all right, now he's saying, yeah, a lot of what they do say is fake. Okay, because I mean, the press has been, someone's scrutinized it. People have retracted stories. People have even claimed to retract stories. Other people believe stuff is just incorrect and true.
Unsubstantiated claims from people.
See, again, we're getting back into rhetoric. Could you point me to any
I have no other
substantive policies?
The only information I have is what I can read.
So once again, now the whole idea isn't whether or not Donald Trump is fascist, it's whether or not he's fascist compared to Obama. Once again, she's already qualified that he is, right? Now, he's not willing to budge because it's not enough. But now he's playing a leftist spectral game of, well, you just really haven't convinced me enough because policies, according to Obama, were very fascist. So to call Trump a fascist and then say it's on rhetoric and not let me bring you back to policy, even though it's an affect of Donald Trump's speech, it's still not, it's not enough for me to change my mind, right? But that's what makes his fucking, this little change my mind thing, like, stupid, right? It's like, hey, I'm really stuck on this, change my mind. Like, fuck. I think apples are a cousin to the watermelon. Change my mind. Have 5 hours of fucking scientists and botanists and bullshit on. Yeah, okay, we'll talk about another one on my next Change My Mind episode. You guys didn't convince me of shit.
And what I can see on television.
Maybe I
And so
won't.
whatever Donald
Like I
Trump
said, I
puts
haven't
out
watched
as a
it.
tweet, that is what I know.
Okay. What do you read and what do you watch as far as television news?
I watch Fox and I watch MSNBC.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you balance kind of two sides of the
Yes,
coin.
I do.
That's very respectful.
Okay, so already the idea that Fox and CNN are on the opposite side of a coin, like that's an old thing, right? Is it really that the case, or are all the news organizations liberal, right? Because now Steven Crowder would suffer the idea of listening to Fox as being maybe not liberal, but non-liberal, right? It's more conservative. He'll argue. I'm not gonna disagree on this point. I'm just trying to illustrate that he's trying to catch her on an opinion and a use of the word Nazi. Her descriptions that seem to fulfill that, her descriptions of what's going on with Trump, and here he is like trying to avoid it, push and pull it. So yeah, well, that's just rhetoric. Let's get back to policy. Then let's compare it to Obama. So he's distilling it to some extent, and yet at the same time, I think he's eating crow. I think he's getting his ass handed to him here.
And I actually appreciate that. I think it's more valuable than watching CNN that kind of plays down the middle when they obviously lean left. And what do you read?
So CNN now leans left. So why not say even Fox is left leaning compared to what you can get on YouTube, right? And then just say, well, it's left, it's liberal because it's left, because even Fox being not left is still left compared to the internet. I mean, this is what I meant by, like, even the idea of what rhetoric is allowed or what speech is promulgated statistically on air, measured by individuals to put them on a binary between left and right, or like it's not a policy-driven commentary. It's basically a categorization of a binary political system. And that's really all it is. Even when we don't legally have to have this binary, we're substantially conventionalized into it. Anyway.
Why do you know CNN obviously leans left?
Well, if you look at you want to take Jake Tapper's example, do you want to take a multitude of their reporters, you want to take a multitude of people who actually work at CNN who have direct ties to the Hillary Clinton campaign, but I don't want to get off on the beaten
Right, now he doesn't...
path here.
Okay, right. Now she just pulled it. She just said, hey, look, how are you coming up with this definition of on the left? And all he could do then is point to other people, not quoting the quotes, not saying, well, Jake Tapper said, hey, we're on the left. Right? He's just, and then okay, that's getting off the beaten path, because really where he wants her is on policy, as if rhetoric carries no weight, right? And so here he is defaming the institution of journalism. Trump is. He's shutting down or attempting to use speech to shut down speech, using his power to stop individuals who could possibly undermine his power position. Indicates a dictatorial and not an egalitarian or fair or justified positioning if he does have wrongdoing, right? And so then the accusation, people seeing that, goes, oh yeah, he's like a mob boss trying to run the organization, as if to say, this is really how it's been the whole time. And now I'm going to show everybody this is how it's been the whole time. And maybe that is one virtue that Trump could say, like, hey, look at all this that I was able to do, that you guys thought was so solid.
Brought that up because you definitively said Donald Trump is a fascist, right? If I'm not mistaken. That was your assertion.
Well,
Right, now he's saying, now you've definitively said that Donald Trump is a fascist. So now he wants her to then maybe own all the definitions of fascism, right? But he's got to look like Mussolini. He's got to carry himself like Goebbels, right? If otherwise he's not fascist de jure.
Well, I said that looking at that definition, I think parts of it met Donald Trump, but not all of it.
Okay, so
He has not made laws, or he can't make laws, but he has not done things. He's not pulled up the army or
He could,
whatever
though.
forces he could
He could make laws.
to suppress people or oppress people. He has not done that. He has actually, because we don't have these laws, we've been working, I think, under the assumption that some behaviors, they were customs, they were customary. This is the way people customarily did things. Customarily, presidential candidates showed us their tax returns. So, no, Donald Trump hasn't broken any laws in not showing us his tax return. He simply has broken custom.
what does any of this have to do with Donald Trump being a fascist?
Nothing. I think I was getting to a point of there are points in that where that with that definition that I think he pulls into fascism, but not all of it.
So you believe Donald Trump's tax returns, as it relates to him being a fascist, are more relevant than previous presidents and their suppression of the press?
No, I was using his tax returns as an
example.
example.
That's why I was using Barack Obama and his treatment of the press. So I'm okay with using the tax returns. I disagree that would make him a fascist.
No, I didn't say that would make him
No,
a
I
fascist.
understand. And I also didn't say that it would make Barack Obama a fascist. I'm just was pointing out the active suppression and prosecution of journalists, which was unprecedented under President Obama. Same thing we're talking about. You just mentioned
Okay, he pulled a fast one, so he's questioning Obama. He's not saying Obama was a fascist. He's just comparing him.
that he can't make this into law. Well, unfortunately, because of executive orders now in precedent, there are a lot of executive orders that have made law. You know, most egregiously would be DACA or Title IX that we saw from the previous administration. Whereas executive actions are simply meant to actually guide current laws and how they are interpreted. So he could. So a good example of fascism would be someone who would sign an executive order that would actively suppress the press. He hasn't done that. An executive order, somehow using the Second Amendment or changing it thereof for a free citizenry to be an armed populace, or signing an executive order, for example, that might silence freedom of speech through roundabout ways. He hasn't done any of those things. He has actually rolled back regulations, rolled back taxes, rolled back red tape. He's been less invasive into your life. So I just don't see how...
Less invasive into my life.
Yes.
And he...
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I was okay with all of that until he made the claim less evasive into her life, right, where she's responding, right? It's like I'm on the same wavelength as her generally with this, right? Because, granted, it's not a disagreement with Crowder. It's a disagreement of his assertions that the collateral effect of his words as a custom, right, whether or not he puts it into law and concretizes it in legal structure, right, is different than his lingual behavior, which is customary. And once again, that's the whole idea is, okay, Trump himself, even being president, I think that doesn't lose his citizenship, but he's taken a different role in the system than a civilian. Right, and so his rhetoric, customarily, is not form-fitting, and the lingual threats or the lingual denials or separations or obfuscations or underminings, those particular processes, and lying and outright zigzagging back and saying he didn't say stuff that he said, or saying that just using the variability of language to kind of just gloss over and get shit done, or try to ignore shit, right? I mean, that's who the guy is. But the whole point is that he is mostly, Donald Trump, like a fascist. Let's say that. And by a fascist, I mean, like, her definition mostly described some of fascism, but not all of it, and she gave in, and then she pinpointed. And so here we are, and Donald Trump seems to echo somebody that is using his power, his words, not the law structure itself, but his position of power to renegotiate, redefine, re-obfuscate things that historically, as she puts it, customarily, I would say conventionally, we've accepted as how presidents act. Obviously, he doesn't act like that.
He can break laws and get away with it.
That's unfortunately been the case with
He
breaking law. Everyone here is breaking laws. If you were to
How are we all breaking laws here?
I'm talking about Washington, D.C. There are no...
I don't live in D.C. I'm not from Washington,
Okay.
D.C.
So what laws would you say he's broken, gotten away with?
The immigration.
Okay.
The problem at the border. That when people cross the border and try to apply for, what are these, the people who are saying that they are being oppressed or have trouble in their home countries.
Yeah,
Or trying for
refugees.
asylum. Refugees,
Yeah.
right. And so he says he is saying there are no refugees. These are simply all illegal immigrants.
Yes.
And as they step foot across the border, they are now criminals.
Yes.
I had a video months ago, maybe even over a year ago, saying, hey, look, we need to refer to a lot of what's going on in immigrants as Mexicans as refugees and not immigrants. It's not an immigrant status issue. It's a refugee issue. It's an economic refugee issue in some cases. And she's saying, look, and he's still arresting them.
So is he not breaking, is that a law or is that simply a custom? The United Nations, somebody put out and said you have to take refugees in. Is he not breaking laws?
No, he's not. That is United States law. Your problem would be with existing United States law. If you cross the border
So
and
is
enter
he,
this country
well,
illegally.
excuse me, I'm not down there saying you can't come across.
No, there should be someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying I'm personally not down there saying these people are not allowed to come across, but somehow President Trump has his group of people down there saying they're not allowed to come
Right.
across.
And they're not allowed to cross. How is that fascist?
I'm saying, well, he's breaking laws.
No, he's not. He's enforcing the United States immigration law. You
No,
can't cross into this country
you're
illegally.
talking immigration law versus the problem of the refugees who are coming here and saying, I would like to apply for refugee status. I would like to prove that I've been.
Sure.
And they're not giving their day in court. They've had, I think there was something reported of a woman who was, her day that she was supposed to actually be in court was on a plane being sent back to Venezuela or Guatemala or wherever, and the judge says, get her back here.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I want to, because we just, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, so I think she's making a point about leaving the country after being arrested for refugee status, and so she's basically using an example like, hey, a refugee, not an immigrant, goes across the border, basically asks for asylum, gets detained, somehow gets released and starts flying back, and somebody wants them to pull back. Right? I think she's showing what she's exemplifying about the border and about how it's deal, and she's depersonalized it and saying, I'm not the one doing this. But notice this is what Trump has going on.
I appreciate you being civil. I think we're maybe missing each other here. Can you explain to me, someone crosses the, let's say, Mexican-American border, right? Does so without any verification, just does so in the heat of the night. Illegal immigrant.
Right.
What is the difference between somebody who does that and somebody who does it and seeks refugee status? What's the difference between an illegal immigrant and an undocumented refugee who comes here illegally?
I think if there were people who were sitting at the border trying to walk into, from what I understood, that there were sort of government.
My understanding, and then I'll let her speak, I haven't seen this part of the video, is that when you first interview somebody that is claimed to be crossing the border, your job is to ask them, what is your claim, right? Like a lot of law, it requires a defendant who makes claims, a perpetrator, right, that then becomes a defendant, and prior to certain things, if they make a declaration of being a refugee, then it is incumbent upon those that are catching them, quote unquote, or intersecting them on our side of the border to make that clarification, Crowder.
Spots where they could walk in there and say, I'm here as a refugee, please allow me in. Those places were closed down. How do you make it impossible for them not to obey the law and then arrest them and say you disobeyed the law?
What law is he disobeying by not allowing illegal
But
immigrants?
sir, I tell you, I'm not sure if it's United States law, if this is NATO, if this is we sign treaties with people saying we are going to treat refugees.
Yeah, and what are the treaties, the international treaties that justify what it is we're doing? And Crowder's busy saying it's not American law. But I think what I iterated earlier about it being incumbent upon whoever is doing the arrest makes them make a declaration, or they generally have a declaration. Beyond that, it's all assumptive that they're immigrants and not refugees.
This certain way.
It's not.
What's not?
It's not. You said you don't
What
know
is
if
it
it's
then?
not a
What
law.
is it then?
So because when you
What
brought
is,
up,
who protects the refugees? Who gave us this? That a refugee comes in and says, please let me in.
I understand where you're coming from, a place of compassion, right? These people
No,
are coming.
please don't go there. Please don't go there. We're trying to say that, to me, a fascist is a person who, I'm not coming from compassion. I'm coming from the position
That's an insult. I understand that because I'm compassionate toward these people. But rule of law does matter. Your problem is not with the United States
No,
president.
it's with President Trump.
It's with the United
No,
States.
it's with President Trump, who is breaking the law and not allowing these people to come in.
No, he's not. He's not breaking the law. I think that's important. Again, there's nothing fascist about having borders. If we go back to fascism, we're talking about autocratic control of government or a racial ethno-nationalist state. There's nothing fascist about actually enforcing current immigration law.
What current immigration laws?
You
I don't even know what they are. Does anyone know what they are?
Yes.
What are they?
You're not allowed to come to this country illegally, and you should be deported if you
What
do.
about the refugees? I said I'm not talking about
If
the
they enter
immigrants. I'm
illegally,
talking
if they
about
enter
the
illegally, they're to be
refugees.
deported. They're
And
illegal
if they
immigrants.
are absolutely
Right. Okay. So, and that just, he's emblematic of what the right thinks. Like, hey, look, even if they claimed refugee status, we're going to call them immigrants because we know better, right? Hey, there's too many of these guys. You want in, you're undocumented, right? They don't want to be responsible for that little thing, right? But so anyway, so the idea of if somebody came across and said, look, I'm about to die, all my shit's been taken. I'm on the run. I'm coming to America because it's the only place I know where I believe I can survive. I'm going to die is the refugee status, right? It's not an immigration. It's not illegal immigration at that point. So this would be where the shoe drops between me and Crowder, me and the right, in terms of that, because I do think a lot of it is the claim. A lot of law and a lot of policing of law and a lot of the arms, the long arm of the law, like ICE or Border Control or even police, is that they do have to make certain assumptions, as they necessarily, I believe everyone holds bias in some regard, but to whitewash and gloss over a difference and a distinction between refugee and immigrant is problematic.
Prevented from doing it legally, then what is that?
That is enforcing immigration laws.
That is not.
Do you believe that's a right that
laws.
anyone who wants to come here should be able to be granted citizenship?
No.
Okay. So what's the problem with vetting
The
people who are
problem
coming here illegally or
is,
sending them back?
you are trying to twist this around. You are not addressing refugees. You're not addressing the fact that people are coming here from Venezuela or Guatemala or whatever South American countries they're trying to come in,
Sure.
saying that I cannot stay there.
Yeah.
We will be
Irrelevant.
killed. Oh, you have such compassion, but it is
It's irrelevant to the law.
It is irrelevant.
To the law, yes.
But it's very compassionate of you to say that it's too bad that
Well, you just
might
said you don't
be
know what the
killed.
law is. And then I've informed you what the law is. And then you said Donald Trump is a fascist. So I want to make sure that I understand this. Do you
Sir,
believe Donald Trump is a
you know what,
fascist
sir?
because he's
I
enforcing
love
immigration
the
law?
pressured speech.
Do you believe Donald Trump is a fascist
I
because
love
he
the
enforces
pressured speech.
immigration law?
You guys can just twirl stuff around and
I'm not trying to twirl
pressure
anything
stuff around and say all you want, pretend to be compassionate, and you're not.
Can I say one last
Goodbye.
thing? One last thing? Can we discuss
Goodbye.
one last
It's
thing?
very hot.
I know it's very hot. Let me see if we can find common ground on this.
I doubt it.
You doubt it?
I don't.
I think you might be surprised.
I don't.
Okay. I actually have a real problem with fascism. And I would be the first I would be locking arms with you against fascism. If, for example, I
And
would
the
like,
man,
if, for example,
the man who probably did the most
can I
to
speak?
fight and for American rights and laws, Mr. McCain, Senator McCain, and the disrespect he showed that man. Excuse me. Goodbye.
Okay. Well, you didn't allow me to speak, but that's pretty disrespectful, I would say yourself. Thank you. Turns out respect is a one-way street.
Okay, for him even to say that respect is a one-way street, right? No, she feels like, look, like he pulled it first from policy to rhetoric. They had their thing. I mean, first of all, she already granted over what she wasn't attributing to Nazism as a definition. Then she was justified in her descriptions, and I used evidence there to justify that. Now, and then it built to how it's built to this particular point where now he thinks he's been disrespected. Like he's been waiting for someone to sit down. She's owes him fuck all, right, as far as this. And she's saying, look, you totally disrespected me, right? Once it came down to the idea of me parsing out, meaning her, parsing out the difference between a refugee and an immigrant, and him saying it doesn't matter. Now, her response was about compassion. But mine is more like, okay, well, let's see what the laws are here. Is the amendment to the, let's see, is an amendment to the earlier Immigration and Nationality Act of 1980. Migration and Refugee Assistance Act was also created. The states for refugees of special humanitarian concern. And generally a refugee is because they are dying or they are suffering. And completed March 9th, signed by Jimmy Carter under the effect of 1980. Comprehensive amendment of the U.S. General Immigration Laws designed to face up to the realities of modern refugee situations by stating a clear-cut national policy and providing flexible mechanism to meet the rapidly shifting developments of today's world policy. Okay, so let's see. The main objectives of this act were to create a new definition of refugee based on my mug off there. One, created by the UN Convention Protocol, statutes raise limitation 17,000 to 50,000. Okay, raise the limitation. Okay, so number exceeds within established refugee affairs and office. Okay, and so the amount of refugees is apparently a finite amount that we're able to take in. That's interesting. Admission of refugees. Act amended the Immigration and National, I guess it just comes down to reading that act, person who is outside the country of their residence and national or without nationality and unable or unwilling to return to it and is unable or unwilling to avail himself or herself of the protection of that country because of persecution or well-founded fear of persecution on the account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, which might be a nationality or political opinion, right? Okay, so, yeah, it's kind of interesting actually, because I was commenting earlier that it was really more about one's safety. Because of they were going to die, and I even thought of for malnutrition recipe. You know, people who can't grow. There's been a nuclear bomb blown off in their country, and they want to leave the country. They think they would, for whatever country they're entering, be considered refugees. Anyway, that being said, we're back here. Okay, so she stormed off. Now his conclusion.
By the way, before the next interview, this is a good time to let you know to hit the notification bell, because subscriptions don't mean anything anymore. Or join Mug Club at liveofcrowder.com/mugclub for the full 1-hour daily show. Not only do you get the show every day, as opposed to just the clips, along with this wondrous hand-etched, hand-painted mug, but most of these Change My Minds and similar videos get demonetized the moment they're uploaded. So Mug Club is the only way to support it. $69 per year for students, veterans, or active military. Try it for a whole week before you join. Okay, let's talk to this next guy.
It probably is the perfect time. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, hang on one sec. Okay, we're going to pause that, and then I'm going to pause this particular thing one moment. I'll be with you in just a second. And I'm going to go quit and quickly type this in. And then I'll be done. And all right.